Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us this evening, especially those who have logged on a little bit early. My name is Graham Preham. I'm one of our Associate Directors of Admission with the University of Denver. I'm really excited for you to be here this evening to learn a little bit more about our Department of Geography and Environmental Science at DU, as well as our sustainability programs. During this time, you're welcome to enable closed captioning at the bottom of the screen. We also have our Q&A section. So if you have any questions while our presenter is speaking today, please feel free to use those. But without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Professor Sullivan to talk a little bit more about their department. Like I said, please use that Q&A feature, and I'll come back on later and we'll do a live Q&A with some of those questions that you've asked. But thank you all for being here, and Professor Sullivan, take it away.
Thank you very much, Grant. So my name is Don Sullivan. I'm a professor in the Department of Geography and the Environment. I've been at DU for a very long time, and so I'm really happy to talk about our programs here. I thought I'd show just a couple of slides to give you a sense for what our department is like, and to give you some idea of what I think are some of the advantages to studying at the University of Denver. First of all, I'll mention our geography program. We offer a Bachelor of Arts in Geography. We also offer a Bachelor of Science in Geographic Information Science. Our geography department is fairly extensive. We have emphases in human and cultural geography that include studies in urban geography, transportation geography, demographics, and cultural geography. We also offer a wide range of courses in physical geography, including landforms and soils, hydrology. We study climate and climate change. We have a program in biogeography, and we also have a number of faculty who are working in paleoenvironmental research, that is reconstructing what past environments were like. In addition, we have a geotechnology section in our geography program, where we offer degrees in geographic information science, as well as coursework in remote sensing, GIS applications, computer cartography, and so on. And then finally, our environmental science program, we offer a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science. We also offer a Bachelor of Arts in Sustainability. And those classes include things like dendroecology, hydrology, geologic hazards, environmental justice, and programs in environmental law. So to just talk a little bit about what I think are some of the strengths of the program and why study geography or environmental science at the University of Denver. To begin with, we offer all of our students an opportunity for real-world experiences. And we do this through a very extensive internship program. Something like 40 or 50% of our undergraduates do internships. We have a faculty member here whose work is entirely devoted to establishing, maintaining, and monitoring internship programs for our students. These can be with private companies, environmental consulting firms, government agencies, local, state, and federal agencies. Some of them are paid internships. You can do internships for credit during the school year. You can do internships for credit over the summer. Again, many of which are paid. We actually have a program to supplement income for students who do summer internships if the internship itself is in a paid internship program. So we have a lot of opportunities for some real world experience. We also have a lot of opportunities for field and laboratory experience. We think that our students should get an opportunity, since both geography and environmental science are really are field disciplines. We feel that our students need to have some opportunity for that. So many of our courses, in fact, most of our courses, have some field component to them. Now, that may be as little as field trips to local museums. I did that with one of my classes this week, for example. It may involve more extended field trips, weekend trips, for example. I teach several classes where I do overnight experiences in various places around Colorado and so forth. In addition, we have longer term field experiences. We have programs during our long winter break, during our spring break, and during our summer that are field courses. So those are interterm and summer school classes. Those are travel courses quite often. We have classes and have offered classes in places like Peru and Ecuador and Costa Rica. We in um, um, Spain this year. We're going to have a group of students going to Spain, to Iceland. Next winter, we have a winter interterm class going to Antarctica. So there are lots and lots of opportunities for field experiences in during the regular class times. And then we have, oh, and this is these are students doing some field work in Arizona, looking at dendrochronology, taking tree cores to study the tree rings in them. We do geological field trips. This is in Southern California. We also do a lot of field trips here in Colorado, and this is a group of students I had up in the mountains in Colorado a while back. Another program we have that offers field experience, and this is one I think is really unique. There's nothing else quite like it in the country. It's called the Field Quarter. The Field Quarter is a program that's open to all of our students. We select 12 students. Students apply to participate in the program. We have 12 students every fall who participate in the Field Quarter. And the classes are all taught off campus. So they're all field courses and they're taught consecutively. So you take one class, finish that class, take the next class, finish that, and so forth. You take the same 4 classes, and it's a full-time load. So you don't take anything else during the Field Quarter. Excuse me, just to give you an idea of what the Field Quarter is like. Last year's Field Quarter started with a class I taught in paleoenvironmental field methods. My research is looking at climate and environmental change over the last 20,000 years or so. And we do that by taking sediment cores from lakes and wetlands. So here are some images of classes where we're taking some of these sediment cores that we bring back to the lab and then work on. The second class is taught by one of my colleagues, a geology professor, Mike Kerwin. He takes students to Arizona, to the field station, the American Museum of Natural History field station in the Chiricahua Mountains in southern Arizona. And they study the geology and ecology of the Southwest, including biogeography and so forth. The third class is taught in Nicaragua by Matthew Taylor, looking at development dilemmas. He's specifically is interested in looking at the effects of tourism and developing tourism on local communities in coastal Nicaragua. It's a very interesting class. It's about 2 weeks in Nicaragua. And then the last class is another one I teach, and it's a class on southwestern deserts primarily. We traveled through New Mexico, Arizona, and California for a month, looking at everything from climatology to botany to geology to cultural geography. And we actually spend a little bit of time on the coast of California as well. And that's a month-long class. The Field Quarter extends through the entire fall quarter. It's 10 weeks in the field, essentially. And the nice thing about it is it doesn't cost anything for students to do the Field Quarter, except the round trip airfare to Nicaragua. But we cover everything else. We cover all of the travel expenses, all of the food, camping, entrance to national parks and so forth. Everything else is covered. So it's simply part of your tuition at the university. And then finally, the last thing I'd mention as a strength is the opportunity to be involved in research. There are a lot of universities where professors do research, but students don't really have much of an opportunity to get involved in that, especially undergraduate students. But at the University of Denver, we think that research opportunities should be made available to students who are interested in them. And as a result, we actually provide funding for undergraduate research. And again, I'll use my students for examples, but I have a number of students working in my lab right now, undergraduates, 6 of them, in fact, working in my lab doing paleoenvironmental research, working on sediment cores like the ones you see here. Some of those students are actually getting paid for the research through our Partners in Scholarship funding programs. And that research can involve anything from lab work and field work and water quality and hydrology. We do all sorts of lab work as well. So students get the opportunity to gain laboratory experience as well. So the geography department and program in environmental science at the University of Denver offers a lot of really unique experiences, ones that I think are really unusual for undergraduates in colleges today. And I hope you'll consider coming and joining us at the University of Denver. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that information. We already have some questions coming through, so I'm just going to dive right
Absolutely.
into those. At DU, we really also talk about a lot of our flexibility with curriculum to allow students to double major, double minor, all kind of sorts of different degree plans. For students who are maybe interested in one of those field quarters and maybe they're also pursuing a double major, how would that work for those students? And maybe what other opportunities are out there for those students?
Yeah, those are good, very good question. We have a lot of students, as you mentioned, who double major, and certainly a lot of students who are involved in the field quarter who double
Mhm.
major. The field quarter itself almost completes a minor in geography or environmental science. You need to take a couple of additional classes, but the field quarter on its own virtually completes a minor.
Mhm.
It's very easy to double major in courses here. There's a lot of room in the schedule. If you want to do the field quarter, the only thing to be cautious of is scheduling involves planning so that
Mhm.
required classes can be completed and you have a fall quarter free to do the field quarter. But that's not difficult to do. It's simply something you take up with your advisor when you're taking classes, and it's not a difficult thing to do. And I would simply mention that field quarter, despite the fact that there are some international experience, does not count as study abroad, and so most virtually all of our field quarter students also do study abroad. And since study abroad is often done also in the fall quarter, that means that you really do need to plan with your advisor to make sure that you have all the required classes you need in order to be able to participate in those programs. But it's very easy to do. It's simply a matter of planning and scheduling.
Yeah, it's a great segue also into study abroad. So I know you mentioned some domestic trips that students can go on,
Right.
but for students in your programs that do take that semester or quarter abroad, what are some popular courses they're taking over there? Where in the world do they tend to go? And what are they learning while they're over there that they're bringing back to our program?
I'm envious of where our students study abroad. We have students who are studying abroad in almost every country you can imagine, from Mongolia to Ecuador to Ireland. They're all over the world. In terms of the courses that they take, I usually advise my students when they're studying abroad to take courses that we don't offer here,
Mhm.
but that are appropriate in the location where they're studying abroad. So, for example, a student studying in New Zealand will often take marine biology courses, or in Australia, will take marine biology courses that we can't offer here because we're in Colorado. And so a lot of the students who are taking study abroad classes are taking classes that we accept into the major as courses, but that we can't offer necessarily, and they complement what they can take here on campus.
Mhm.
So again, working with your advisor, your departmental advisor, uh, to to determine the best courses for you to take is again very easy to do, and it's something we strongly encourage.
Yeah. And you had mentioned advising, which is, I think, a huge part of maybe what being our size too at DU is really
Right.
special. One question we got is maybe a question you could ask with your advisor hat on. What is the difference between environmental sciences and environmental studies? And I'll
Uh-huh.
throw geographic information sciences in there as well. These maybe are new for students that are maybe going through their college search process. So wondering if you could just give little hits on each one and maybe where students can find their fit in each of them.
Sure. With regard to advising, I'll mention in our program, your advisor will be a faculty member. By the way, I have a colleague at another university, and all of the majors in their department are advised by a secretary. Our faculty do all of our advising, so you'll have a faculty mentor essentially who does your advising for you. The environmental science program is a Bachelor of Science program, so it has a very solid foundation in the sciences. We found years ago, and I was the director of the environmental science program for quite a while. We found years ago that students who majored in environmental studies tended not to get jobs because they didn't have enough science background. And so our program is solidly based in the sciences. We have requirements in chemistry and biology and so forth, as well as earth science.
Mhm.
we have a Bachelor of Arts in Sustainability, which parallels the environmental science curriculum, but without the strong dependence on laboratory science classes.
Mhm.
So for us, our sustainability major is essentially the equivalent of an environmental studies major, which doesn't require as much science. But our environmental science majors do very, very well because they have that strong science background. So they're very competitive for graduate schools and for jobs and so on. Students who are considering coming to the university as first-year students probably aren't thinking ahead to graduate school. But I will say that because of the combination of internship experience I mentioned, field experience that I mentioned,
Mhm.
research opportunities that I mentioned, and the strong curriculum in environmental science and geography, our students are incredibly competitive for graduate schools and for law schools and things like that. I literally had a student in here in my office this afternoon who just got finished um, opening all of her acceptances for law school. And she was accepted at an incredible number of law schools around the country. She's somebody who has done field quarter, study abroad, worked in my laboratory, and so on. And she's getting scholarship offers at some of the best law schools in the country. Our students are very, very highly regarded when they leave here.
Mhm.
Um, you asked, was GIS.
Yep.
GIS is Geographic Information Science. It's basically using computer databases to do spatial analysis and spatial problem solving. And so it's a geotechnical program. We have one of the most extensive GIS programs, undergraduate GIS programs in the country. And it's a very big part of our undergraduate curriculum. We have several faculty who are devoted just to GIS, and it's a very, very popular program and a very powerful program in terms of jobs and graduate schools and so forth. Yeah.
I also want to talk a little bit more about just what does a average class look like at the University of Denver should they come here? What's that faculty interaction look like? How many majors
Sure,
are there in the program, and what can students expect in that, maybe freshman seminar course with their first environmental science class?
sure. Um, so classes tend to be small. I have one class this year, one class this quarter that has 17 students, which
Mhm.
is a fairly good sized class for me. My biggest class outside of the introductory level classes, my biggest class is about 20 or 22.
Mhm.
And the reason for that is we keep it small so that we can do field trips. So we can fit students into two university vans and go on a field trip with 20 students. So that classes tend to be fairly small.
Mhm.
My classes are a combination of lecture and seminar sorts of classes.
Mhm.
So I'm doing a class this quarter on arid lands and landscapes, and I lecture about a third or half the time, and about the remainder of the time it's discussion and student presentations and things like that. It's all done pretty intimately and informally. My students all call me by my first name. We have a lot of contact, both in and out of class. So it's fairly informal
Mhm.
in that respect. So the largest class we have, the largest class in the university is 100 students, and that's an introductory level class. There's one in biology, there are a couple in geography, physical geography, but those break up into small labs.
Mhm.
So the lecture is fairly large, although by most university standards, a large lecture of 100 is pretty small. Um, when I was an undergraduate, I was in lecture classes of 400 and 500 students. So we don't have anything like that here.
We
So,
don't even have the space for it. So,
no, it's true. And we
yeah,
don't want
yeah,
it.
yeah, very true. I also want to talk a little bit about location. For
Mhm.
students who are maybe studying in Colorado, obviously is a huge draw for students, but maybe talk a little bit about Denver and why maybe even being in a metropolitan area and having access to so many different geographic regions is a huge benefit. Or maybe for the student who's maybe daunted about living in the city and studying environmental science, what is so great about being in the city of Denver?
Sure. Um, Yeah, this is a great place. I came from California, and I'm thrilled to be in Denver. If you're not familiar with Denver, it's an extremely dynamic city.
Mhm.
It's one of the most popular cities in the country. There was a survey I saw a few weeks ago that said Denver is the place most people want to go move to from somewhere else. It's a very dynamic city. It's a young city.
Mhm.
We have our average age is among the youngest in the country. In fact, the state of Colorado is among the youngest states in the country. It has very, in terms of Denver, it has very active cultural scenes, museums, music, theater, and so forth. So it's a very dynamic place. We have a good public transit system, including our light rail system, that gives students from DU access to anywhere in the city.
Mhm.
And by our light rail, it's about a 10 or 15-minute ride from Denver, from the campus to our downtown. And of course, undergraduate students get a pass for the light rail, so you doesn't cost you anything to
Mhm.
use it. So within the city of Denver, there's a great deal of accessibility for things. But as you mentioned, Denver, Colorado is a dynamic and very large state with a lot of different environments. And being in Denver is very handy. We're 15 or 20 minutes from the mountains. So we're 15 or 20 minutes from the Great Plains. It's very easy to get outdoors and to get outside of Denver. And we may take advantage of that at the university with our various field trips and so forth. The university also has a mountain campus, the Kennedy Mountain Campus, which is located at about 9,000 feet in the mountains. We also have a high elevation laboratory on Mount Blue Sky at about 10,600 feet, where students can do research and so forth. And so we have a lot of access to the mountains as well. And there are a number of organizations, student groups and so forth, that make use of the environment. Our Alpine Club and a number of other student organizations are dedicated to making use of the outdoors. So access is a good thing here. It's a pretty easy thing. I'm going to mention one other thing if I can. I'm going to put in a plug. I'm the faculty director for the Environmental Sustainability Living and Learning Community, which is a program for first-year students. Students can apply to be part of this program. We have 22 students a year, typically. They all live on the same residence hall floor. And I'm the faculty advisor for the group, and I teach a seminar each quarter with that group. And we focus on various aspects of environmental sustainability and environmental issues, beginning with local issues and then expanding out to regional issues and so forth. And that's an excellent program for students, especially if you're not from the area, although certainly we get a lot of students from the area as well. But it provides an opportunity for me to help students integrate into not just the university community, but the city of Denver and even the more regional area. We do a lot of field trips in that program as well. And so that's a nice way to transition for students from high school to a new environment, a new culture at the university, and a new environment in Denver. And so if you're interested in the university, I would look into the environmental sustainability living and learning community as well. We often have environmental science and geography majors, obviously, in that program. So,
Which you must have been reading my notes because that was my next question that I was going to ask you. So I'm glad you got the plug. I was also going to let the students know that if you are an admitted student, that application is open. So you're welcome to start that application process, which is exciting.
and it does,
So-
again, doesn't cost anything to participate at all. We have a budget and we spend our money on you. You
Mhm.
don't have to spend money to be involved. So,
Looks like we have time for a couple more questions. And you had mentioned
sure.
the Kennedy Mountain campus. Now
Yeah.
we use that for a lot of social aspects, like our first descent. We do some retreats up there. We do a wilderness medicine course, parent and family weekend up there. But I'm wondering if within your department, if there's anything special that goes on with the mountain campus. And you had also mentioned the observatory if you want to dive deeper into those.
Well, we have the Kennedy Mountain campus. We are developing coursework right now to make use of the campus, especially in the summer.
Mhm.
There is a program that was an interdisciplinary program that was done last summer up there that was quite successful, dealing with it had to do with sensing and recording the outdoor experience, and it was a very successful course. And I suspect that we will be seeing a lot more courses up in the Kennedy Mountain campus. I'm looking forward to getting up there and starting one myself, but I'm not quite there yet. Um, I mentioned the Mount Blue Sky facility. We have a high elevation laboratory that actually dates back to the early part of the 20th century. It was a uh, high elevation cosmic ray research center that was an inter-university consortium from University of Chicago and Harvard and I think Columbia University and the University of Denver, and they were doing high elevation physics up there. Eventually, new technologies made that program more or less obsolete, and the university took over that facility, which is a two-story log dormitory at Echo Lake at 10,600 feet that sleeps 20 some odd people. And we use that facility for classes throughout the year. I take students up there at least twice during the year in the winter and in the fall for field courses. And then we also have classes taught up there during the summer. And it's also available for other things. University organizations like the Alpine Club and so forth can use the cabin as well. So, pardon me, that gets quite a bit of use. Excuse me.
We have time for one more question, and it's going to be kind of an open-ended question for you. But for students that are really considering, not only DU, but these programs specifically, what advice do you have for them now as they're in high school? We have some juniors on the call, some students who are finishing their senior year. What advice do you have for maybe coursework they should look to take, maybe how to set themselves up for success coming into the program, to really take advantage of a lot of the opportunities that you had talked about?
Well, I don't usually advise on high school classes. I advise on my university students. I suppose if you have the opportunity to do AP classes, that can be useful. Um, but I would just say, regardless of what you take,
Mhm.
uh, do well in your classes. I suppose that's my only advice. I don't have specific courses to suggest necessarily. Uh, yeah, I think the idea is just to, I tell you, here's my advice. Use your high school class, identify and define where your passions lie. Uh, when I talk to undergraduate students, I often talk to students who aren't sure what they want to do. And my answer to them is always find what you're passionate about and do that. That's what'll make you happy. It doesn't really matter whether it fits into somebody else's idea of what you should be doing.
Mhm.
So I would use your experience in high school to help you identify what makes you happy, what you're passionate about. And then when you get to university, you can figure out the best way to make a career out of those passions. That's what I did. And it seems to work.
Yeah, that's great advice. And from the admission side, we also hope you do well in those courses. So I'm also glad you mentioned that one. But thank you all so much for joining us this evening. Like I said, my name is Graham Preheim. You're welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions. We did record this session, so if you had any questions that were left lingering or you maybe missed a part or two, just know that we're going to email you the entire playlist of all the sessions we've been doing over the last 2 weeks. That will be coming out here in a couple weeks or so. But thank you, Professor Sullivan, for your time. Thank you for all of your wise wisdom as well. And we hope to see you all on campus either this fall or sometime soon. Thank you,
Grant,
everyone.
can you forward my email to anybody who might want it?
Absolutely. We can definitely do that.
So if anybody has any further questions for me, I'll be more than happy to be contacted.
Thank you all so much. Have a good evening.